Hey guys, what's going on? It's me, Jay. We're doing our second installment of the Star Wars review series. We will review every piece of Star Wars media, starting with the 9 movies. Yeah, really 11 movies, but okay, the 9 movies of the Star Wars Skywalker saga. So this is the second one. Empire Strikes Back, released in 1980. Now, the first one was a huge success, broke all kinds of box office records, transformed the film industry, even was the first film really, well, not the first, but one of the first, 1968's Planet of the Apes was the absolute first to have a toy line for the first time ever associated with movies. Now, granted, uh, originally they didn't have enough toys, so they just gave people an empty box, and the toys would be released later. But you had toys for it and everything. It was a huge merchandising success. Lucas is now a rich man. But how does he follow it up? You're only as good as your last hit. So he decides he's contracted for three by 20th Century Fox, which was the company that picked it up after United Artists passed on it. Alan Ladd Jr., the uh, the head of Fox Studios, he picked it up, and he was like, this is good, and Lucas is contracted for 3 movies, so he had trouble writing it the last time. So what does he do? He enlists the help of a famous science fiction writer, a woman named Lee Brackett. She writes her first treatment for it, which is initially different than what came out. But unfortunately, in 1978, she passes away from cancer, and now she's passed away. So he passes it on to Lawrence Kasdan, the man who helped him with his other famous film project, collaborating with friend Steven Spielberg, Raiders of the Lost Ark. So, where are we in the story? The rebellion has won. The Empire was initially defeated. The Death Star was destroyed. But this is not the end for what's up, David. This is not the end for uh, the Empire. They want to now. They know that Luke Skywalker is the star pilot for the rebellion, and they want to capture Luke Skywalker. So the rebel base in Yavin has been found out, so they have to move the rebel base to another planet, the Hoth planet, which is basically an ice planet. Now, Princess Leia is leading the rebellion. Now, Han Solo, he wants to get out of there. He wants to he collect his reward and he wants to get out of there. But problem is, Luke Skywalker is missing. He's caught in the snow, and people are concerned for him because he has not come back yet. He was captured by a Wampa, and he fights this Wampa. The Wampa, the Snow Beast, has him tied up, and he uses the power of the Force and his lightsaber to defeat this Wampa. Right? He's slowly but surely learning how to use and manipulate the Force each and every time. So Han won't leave until Luke is found. He goes out with a Tom Tom, and he finds Luke. Luke is passed out due to the cold, and he cut and he cuts the thing open. He says, "Ah, it's smelly," right? And they rescue Luke. Now, while Luke is getting back to health, Han wants to leave again, and Leia, he's saying, Leia, secretly, you want me here. You actually like me. Because in the first movie he was like, he asked Luke, "Do you think princess and a guy like me?" And Luke immediately retorts back, "No," because there is some tension between initially Luke Skywalker and Princess Leia, some sexual tension. Because he's the first one initially to save her. So she tries to deny that she likes Han Solo. She calls him a scruffy looking nerf herder. And out of rebellion, out of anger, she kisses Luke Skywalker. And the look on Chewbacca's face and the look on C3PO's face is classic. You know what I mean? Like they're like, what the hell? And we don't put it together why they would say that, but after initial revelation, we find out, why they would say that. But while Luke was trapped in the snow and almost dying, he had a vision of Obi-Wan Kenobi. Obi-Wan Kenobi tells him to go to Dagobah and train with Yoda, the man who trained him. Go to the Dagobah system and find Yoda. And he remembers the name. So this is what he must do. He must go to Dagobah and find Yoda. But before that happens, the Empire discovers where they are. And the Empire comes in the Hoth planet, and they have the Battle of Hoth with the big AT-AT walkers. But the rebellion wins, and they push back the Empire. And Luke goes to Dagobah while uh, Princess Leia and Han Solo are together on their own adventure in which they dodge asteroid fields. Basically, they need to fix the Millennium Falcon, and they're going to a man who Han Solo has known for years. He was actually the original owner of Millennium Falcon, and that man is Lando Calrissian, played by Billy D. Williams of Lady Sings the Blues fame. Now, Billy D. Williams, this was a revolutionary act in a way because the original Star Wars was critiqued in the fact that they had no African American cast members at all. So and even though Lucas had conceived that Han Solo be black, eventually Harrison Ford got cast with the character and he wasn't. So now they come with Billy D. Williams. He was a huge star in a lot of black media. Like I said, Barry Gordy's first movie, Lady Sings the Blues. He was basically a heartthrob of his era. So they bring him in. And because the hyperdrive malfunctioned, they have to get the Millennium Falcon fixed. They have to go to Cloud City, where he is, in order to meet him. So basically, the crew splits up. Luke Skywalker is going to Dagobah to find Yoda. And I have on my desk, you guys can't really see it, but toys, bobbleheads that were given to me by my co-host Lisa of Yoda, the original Dagobah Yoda, and Darth Vader. Which are my two favorite Star Wars characters, and she even drew me a picture of Yoda. You know, I mean, she's a great artist. She drew me that picture. But yeah, Yoda is my favorite character, and this is where we meet him. After Luke goes to the Dagobah system is a swamp world. It's basically all swamp, and Yoda's hiding out there now. Luke is expecting to meet some great master, some great Jedi dignitary. He's not expecting to meet this like 3 foot nothing old alien looking guy with a green hand. In fact, when he meets this guy after his X-Wing crashes in the swamp, he's like, get away from me. I'm looking for Yoda. And the thing is trying to steal his food. It's a real mischievous character. And it's not till later that we find out that the guy he's looking for is in fact this green little thing. But Yoda, now keep in mind, Luke is here to complete his training as a Jedi, but Yoda refuses to train Luke because he says that he is too old to begin the training. And plus, he always has his mind on other things. But Obi-Wan's spirit appears there and he convinces Yoda to train Luke. So we see sequences of Luke training. For example, he has Yoda on his back. He's doing runs because he must he must meet his destiny. He must face Darth Vader, right? He must. Nah, it's fine. Uh, it's fine, Damien. Uh, it's fine, Damien. Whatever. He must face Darth Vader. That is his destiny. But he must be ready to face Darth Vader. But again, like Yoda said, he's always looking to either the future, the past. He's not focused on the task at hand. So what Yoda wants him to do is use the power of the Force to pull his X-wing out of the swamp. And he's trying. He says to Yoda, "You want the impossible. I just can't do it. It can't be done." But then Yoda does it. Yoda lifts the X-wing with the power of the Force out of the swamp. And he said, and Luke said, all Luke can say is, "I can't believe it." And Yoda says, "That is why you fail. Judge me by my size, do you? The Force is my ally." Basically telling Luke, listen, the only thing you need is the Force. The only thing you need is the power of the Force to defeat Darth Vader. Meanwhile, like I said, uh, Leia and Han Solo, they go through asteroid fields because they have to get to Cloud City. But during the time that they are together in Cloud City, they start to fall in love. And Leia, despite the fact that she is putting up a front, she's acting like she does not like Han Solo, that she's not attracted to him. She is attracted to him, and he corners her. He corners her in a closet, and he kisses her while she proceeds to protest somewhat that she likes nice guys. He just outright kisses her, and that begins their love affair. So they get to Cloud City, and they meet Lando Calrissian. Lando Calrissian is a charmer. He tries to charm uh, Princess Leia, which leads to jealousy between him and Han. Him and Han already, uh, him and Han already have a rivalry because it was Han Solo who took the Millennium Falcon from Lando. So they already have this rivalry. But what the crew doesn't know is that the Empire has already arrived in Cloud City and threatened uh, Lando. Lando has a good operation going here. His home and his operation has subverted uh, imperial rule, and he doesn't want that cover blown basically by these rebels arriving there. So he actually does sell them out. He sells them out eventually. And C-3PO gets destroyed, and it's just the heroes are in peril. And while Luke Skywalker is training with Yoda, he uses the power of the Force, and he senses that his friends are in trouble. So rather than continue with his training with Yoda on Dagobah and do the right thing and just forget about his friends, he puts the whole thing in peril by saying that he must go back before he's even ready. Yoda and Obi-Wan's spirit is saying, but Luke, you haven't finished your training, and he's still really fearful because in this one scene, uh, he says, is the dark side more powerful? And then Yoda says, no, but it's not, but it's more seductive. And then he goes into this cave, right? Yoda says, keep in mind, when you face Darth Vader, you only have what you take with you. He goes in this cave, and he sees an uncovered Darth Vader with his face, uh, it's very similar for a comparison with wrestling fans. Remember that time on the lead up to WrestleMania 12 when Undertaker's facing Diesel, and Paul Bearer brings out a casket, and what does Diesel see? His own image in the casket. That's exactly what Luke is seeing, an image of himself in Darth Vader's suit, which means he has the ability to become the next Darth Vader if he's not careful. Darth Vader senses him too. Now, Darth Vader, rather than destroy him, Darth has a meeting with his boss, basically the Emperor. And rather than destroy him, Darth Vader wants to turn Luke Skywalker. He believes he has the ability to turn Luke Skywalker to the dark side. So that's what this is alluding to. That somehow, through his weakness, through his fear, and through his love of his friends, the love of his friends could be used to could be exploited to turn Luke to the dark side if he's not careful. And then Yoda and Obi-Wan appear, and Obi-Wan says, that boy, he was our last hope. And that's the beginning. That's why they call the movie Star Wars A New Hope, because the Empire is ruling over the galaxy and they're looking for another hope. And at this time, this is when they call it Empire Strikes Back Episode 5. Lucas basically admitted that we started in the middle. And Yoda goes, no, there is another. Now, we don't know who that other is, but it's setting you up to what if Luke fails? What if he's not able to defeat Darth Vader? So he goes to Bespin, where Darth Vader is, and he confronts Vader. Now they've captured Princess Leia, they've captured Chewbacca, they've captured C-3PO, and they have to send Han Solo back to Tatooine, Jabba the Hutt, and they freeze him in carbonate. Basically, he's frozen now. And as he's going down, this is one of the most iconic scenes. Leia confesses her love. She finally gives in. She confesses her love to Han, and she says, I love you. And rather than say, I love you back in the conventional way, Han, being Han, says, I know, as he's being lowered in and frozen into carbonate. So Luke arrives. Luke and Darth Vader have the most epic lightsaber battle to date, because keep in mind, Alec Guinness was very old. Dave Prowse, who was the man who portrayed Vader in the suit, he's also very old. The first lightsaber fight that we ever saw in Star Wars was not a good lightsaber fight. At least Mark Hamill, who portrayed Luke Skywalker, he was a little bit younger, so he was able to do a lot more. But he's not powerful enough. You know what I mean? He gets beaten by Darth Vader, and his hand gets chopped off. And then there's the scene the scene that changes the history of the whole entire series. Darth Vader says, Obi-Wan never told you what happened to your father. And Luke says, he told me enough. He told me you killed him. No, I am your father. And the entire audience back then in 1980, they gasped. It was shocking. And then Luke says, no, that's not true. That's impossible. And we're left to wonder, is Darth Vader telling the truth? You know what I mean? Did Obi-Wan Kenobi, when he first told Luke the story in A New Hope, did he lie when he said that a young Jedi betrayed and murdered Luke's father? Was Darth Vader really Luke's father? So here Luke is with one arm, and he escapes by throwing himself off this bridge where they're fighting. And Princess Leia senses that he's there, and she turns back. Her and Lando Calrissian turn back because they're going to save Han Solo, who's been shipped off to Tatooine in the custody of Jabba the Hutt. She turns back and she captures Luke, and they communicate through their minds. Now, what is the connection between them? We're led to assume that the connection between them is that they're in love with each other, and it's supposed to be like a love triangle, but that's not the case. You know what I mean? So Luke gets a mechanical arm. Now he has a mechanical arm. Keep in mind the significance of the arm. Remember, in Mos Eisley, in the original, in the first Star Wars movie, the alien's arm was chopped off. Now Luke's arm is chopped off, and he has a mechanical arm. And as we're leaving, we we watch the good guys get away. But unfortunately, this time the Empire has won. Han Solo is captured. Uh, Darth Vader is still alive, and also Darth Vader has called into question Luke's Luke's faithfulness and Luke's belief in the good side of the Force, Luke's belief in Yoda, Luke's belief in Obi-Wan. Is Obi-Wan a liar? Was this all a lie? Was why did even if it's true, why did Obi-Wan lie? Why would he mislead Luke? Was he, what is yeah, I did see that. I have seen that thing and everybody hates Chris. What is truth? You know what I mean? Luke is very confused, and that's how Empire Strikes Back ends. And the twist ending was something that George Lucas put in at the last minute. You know what I mean? A lot of people didn't know about it. James Earl Jones, who played the voice of Darth Vader, because Dave Prowse, he's in the suit, but Dave Prowse's voice was very puny compared to compared to the real big voice that they wanted for Vader. So James Earl Jones was put in there. He didn't know about it. Nobody really knew about it. It was a big surprise. They really kept it under wraps, and it really shocked the audience. And for 3 years, people were left guessing: is Darth Vader telling the truth, or was Obi Wan telling the truth? And if Obi Wan was lying, why would Obi Wan lie? Why didn't Yoda tell Luke when he was there? But I find a theme with this was like mistaken identity. You know what I mean? Like Luke thought that Yoda was one thing, and Yoda was actually another thing. Luke thought Yoda was just this weak little alien. Meanwhile, he was the greatest Jedi to ever live. Luke thought that Darth Vader was this evil guy, but really now we find out Darth Vader had a past. He was at one time one of the purest Jedi's. In fact, the chosen one, but something went wrong with him, perhaps. So that's where we leave off. 1980, Empire Strikes Back. The best of the Star Wars movies, in my opinion. This had a lot more layers. This was a lot less simplistic. It wasn't just good versus evil, but it makes you question what is good, what is evil. Because here you have Obi-Wan Kenobi. He's supposed to be the good guy, but he's lying. He's basically lying to Luke, or is he? And we had a little bit of a romance too with Leia and Han Solo, which will be embellished in the next movie. Now, there's a scene where Lando Calrissian is wearing Han Solo's clothes, and of course, Harrison Ford, he never really wanted to be in the movie to begin with. He disliked Star Wars. He wasn't a big fan. He much like Allen Guinness, the guy who played Obi-Wan, he wanted to be taken more seriously as an actor, and he felt like being in this sort of popcorn-ish flick wasn't it. So he wanted to be written out where Han Solo just dies and he doesn't have to do another one. But his contract wouldn't allow that. But there was an out where if he did not come back, that Lando Calrissian would actually take his place for the third one, which is 1983's Return of the Jedi. So that's where we're headed to next. 1983's Return of the Jedi, the final movie in the original trilogy. But to answer Damien's question, Damien, why did you feel like you could relate to Chris Rock's depiction in Everybody Hates Chris? Were you bullied at school? Oh, okay. I'm sorry to hear that. Sorry to hear that, David. That's like Star Wars in a way. Um, Here you have Luke Skywalker. He was insignificant in his hometown, but he becomes significant as the leader of the rebellion. He's empowered to do the right thing, and he always does the right thing. You know what I mean? But right now, where we're at now, he's struggling. He's struggling with his emotions because he can't even trust his mentors. He can't even trust Obi-Wan or Yoda. And the dramatic pause that Obi-Wan does in the first movie brings on new significance because you think in your mind, was Obi-Wan formulating a lie as he was telling Luke the story? So, how is this received in popular culture? Now we're in 1980. Ronald Reagan is the president of the United States. It's a sea change. We're no longer going through the political battles, the malaise that we were going through in the late 70s. It's a it's a different it's a different time now in the 80s. Now Ronald Reagan has kind of ended the detente period between us and our longtime rival, the Soviet Union. And because Star Wars is out and is popular and is part of the cultural zeitgeist in the world now, Ronald Reagan now frames the Soviet Union as the evil empire. He says that the Soviet Union is synonymous with the empire in the movies, and he even comes out with a missile defense program uh, in case of an atomic attack by the Soviet Union that he dubs Star Wars. So he Ronald Reagan, the former actor turned politician, has now incorporated Star Wars lore into his public policy by framing the Soviet Union as the evil empire. And this was considered ballsy at the time by detractors because here we were in this period of detente. It had been years since we had been like openly antagonistic towards each other. The early 60s, as a matter of fact, the Berlin Wall comes up in 1961. The Cuban Missile Crisis happens in 1962. And throughout the entire 70s, there was a detente period, a period where we didn't really bother them. They didn't really bother us, right? But now here's Ronald Reagan, this cowboy, using this popular movie and framing the conflict between us and the Soviet Union in these terms. So that's where we're at in 1980. Moving on to 1983, um, Return of the Jedi. But it was just really ironic that Reagan would use that because the original Star Wars was written as a crypto reference to the tyranny of the right wing, the tyranny of Nixon, and now here you have a new right winger, the new Republican president, using it to using it to his ends for his political argument for his causes. So join me in the next one. Thank you, Damien, for contributing. Thank you, David, for contributing. You guys are wonderful. Uh, Damien says he was bullied because he's tall and skinny. Well, Damien, if you were short and fat, they would find something else to bully you about. That's just human nature. There are bullies in this world. There are evil people in this world. And something like Star Wars teaches us that if we have discipline and we do the right thing, evil can be overcome. Maybe not always the right way in real life, but it teaches us one thing. The Star Wars saga teaches us is to face our fears. Because if Luke didn't face his fear and face Darth Vader, all his friends would be in peril. Sometimes our friends and our family depend on us to do the right thing. And that is the lesson. That is one of the lessons of Empire Strikes Back. Had Luke been selfish and continued his training on Dagobah and not gone back for his friends, maybe his friends would have died.